Yo, here we go, YouTube. We're here with a reaction video. We back with a Little Nightmares theory. That this is Little Nightmares 2. Finally makes sense, sort of. This theory is made by Tericho. I'm not sure if I'm ever saying his name right, but he's the same person of the other Little Nightmares theories that we watched, and that was fire. I like the theory that he had for Little Nightmares 1. So let's see what he's talking about for Little Nightmares 2.
During my last theory, we once again boarded the moor and resurfaced some of the secrets of
Yep.
Little Nightmares. Now, that game may look cute with an adorable art style that looks like something straight out of a Studio Ghibli movie, but we very quickly learnt that things in that world were much worse than they first appeared. While that game explained very little, there were a bunch of mysteries lying just under the surface if you went looking for them. Shadows hid secret identities, the guests who once tried to eat you were themselves chopped up and eaten, and the biggest twist of all, the girl you had been playing as, who was tiny in comparison to the world around her, ended
Quick question: is Little Nightmares 3 out already? I don't even
up
know.
being the
I'm
biggest
waiting
game
for
of
that to
them
drop
all.
because I can't
In
wait for
that
the
theory,
lore.
I proved that even though this game is 7 years old, we still don't have all of the answers. There are
Right.
still plenty of mysteries to uncover and things to debate over, like how Mono isn't even the main character of his own game. Yeah, we'll
Mm.
get onto that one. That's right,
Mm.
welcome
That's a
theorists.
big
Today we
take.
are revisiting Little Nightmares 2, the prequel to Little Nightmares 1, but the sequel to Very Little Nightmares. Yes, the timeline of these games is almost as confusing as the storyline. But now, in the lead up to the release of Little Nightmares 3, we've been given
Hey, I just got me some food, some good breakfast. Real talk. Let's talk about it. Waffles, eggs. You already know we about to get down into that later.
some brand new clues. Not only do these clues give us some major insights into the world of Little
Bro, the
Nightmares,
game looks
but they may have
fire. You
also
can't
just
tell me it
proven one
don't.
of my old theories about Mono to be true. So get your snacks, turn up those TVs, and strap in because today we are once again
Hey, I'm
going back
ready,
to the Pale
gang.
City to uncover some of its biggest mysteries. Little Nightmares 2 introduced a brand new character we'd never seen before, Mono.
Mhm.
Okay, that's not technically true. We did see him briefly at the end of the Little Nightmares 1 DLC credits, but spoilers! We'll come back to that. This young chap was similar to the first game's protagonist, Six. He too was tiny compared to the world around him, except where Mono differed is that he had special powers. For some reason, Mono had the ability to travel through televisions. This is very similar to what we see Lo do in the Little Nightmares 3 trailers, except his power works on mirrors. While the first game took place entirely on the moor, the second game takes place around various locations in the Pale City, this crumbling, decaying, and eerily abandoned metropolis. We visit locations such as the woods with the hunter, the school with the teacher and the bullies, the hospital with the
Hey,
doctor and
that's
his
cool.
patients, and
No,
finally, the Pale
which one was more creepy, the school or the doctor, the hospital?
City with this game's main
Real
villain,
question,
the
bro.
long and slender Thin Man. But Mono didn't have to face these
You only
monsters
2 minutes
alone.
in. I need to
He
stop
begins the
pausing.
game by rescuing a young girl who was trapped in the hunter's basement. Now, later, it's revealed that this young girl is Six, the protagonist from the first game. Remember, this game was never marketed as a prequel.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm trying to see if y'all can. If you don't know, I stream all of my all of my videos. So I'm trying to make sure it's working. Cause like it was black on my screen. Hold on. Testing, testing. I be chilling.
This was something that
I
we
just
had
had
to
to make
figure
sure.
out
You
by
know what I'm saying?
playing. But it is revealed later on in the
It was
game
it
this
was
is where
like the
Six got
screen
her
was black
iconic
for me.
yellow raincoat. Now, if you had played the prequel to this game, Very Little Nightmares, you would have known that this raincoat
Wasn't this a
originally
mobile
belonged to the
game?
girl in the yellow raincoat, not Six. It was only after she met her end at the
Oh
hands of
yeah.
the Pretender that she lost it. This was hinted at on the wall behind Six, although this might have also been a huge foreshadow to the end of this game too. But this moment also had a huge hidden
True, that
detail
is
that's
true.
a clue to how this game would end up. Before Mono rescues her, Six is playing this music box. Now, the music that is playing is a version of the Little Nightmares 2
Mm,
main theme.
mm, mm, mm,
But the Little
Ah,
Nightmares
come on,
2
gang.
main theme is
Fire.
actually a different version of Six's theme from the original game, just slightly less haunting.
Mm, mm, That is so creepy,
This
man.
was
That's
Six's
fire.
journey
That's
throughout the
tough.
3 games. As Six becomes more monstrous, her theme changes along with her. I think this was our first clue that Mono was never going to leave this city. These 3 games all revolve around Six in some way or another. In Very Little
Yeah,
Nightmares, she was helping in the background, and she survived where the girl in the yellow raincoat didn't. In
bro.
Little
I was
Nightmares
messing with
2,
Mono
Mono
too,
doesn't
bro.
leave the Pale City, but Six
Like he
does.
was
And
cool.
finally, in Little Nightmares 1, Six is the only one that survives her encounter with the Maw. Just like how the fact that it's a prequel was kept hidden, so was the fact that Mono is a side character here, not Six. Now, at first, Six doesn't really trust Mono. That actually makes a lot of sense, as the last time she trusted another child, she was left behind. But over time, the two start working together. Their first major obstacle they have to overcome is the Hunter. He, as you would expect, hunts animals, but the dark twist here is that he also likes to hunt humans too. But in case that
Hmm.
wasn't dark enough for you, he doesn't just hunt them, he also likes to turn them into human taxidermy. Now, if this just wasn't odd enough, he himself appears to be full of stuffing, and here I thought the
Mm.
guests from the first game were stuffed. But the idea of fake people is
I
carried
didn't
on
even
into the
realize
rest
the
of the
stuffing on
game.
the hunter.
After turning the tables and hunting the hunter, the two make their way into the Pale City. Now, at first, it seems completely lifeless, decaying, and that's because of this game's main theme. Just like the first game had everything themed around hunger, this game has everything themed around escapism, the need to get away. Not only
Hmm.
are these two trying to escape the Pale City, but the residents of this city were also trying to escape it as well. One of the first things you notice about this place is that there are a bunch of clothes lying around, but no one to be seen. Now, the game never explains it, but we can find our answer to this in the concept art. These clothes are all that's left behind of the viewers. These are very similar to the guests in the first game. While those were desperate to eat food, any food, these ones are desperate to watch the televisions. They will
Hmm.
do anything to keep watching the TVs,
Oh God,
even putting their own lives in
addicted.
danger to do so. This, of course, is likely a metaphor for how miserable city life can be. People usually only live in the city for work, and that life can be very monotonous. Commuting, pollution, long days in the office, the only respite the viewers have is the few short hours of television before bedtime. I mean, I guess you
That's
could
real
take a
life for real, for
vacation,
real.
but we already know how the cruises turn out here.
Hey,
Even the name the
I'm
Pale
good on that
City likely
vacation.
comes from the pale blue light of the TVs, artificially brightening up the city at nighttime. This is also likely why this game has a very blue hue to it. Just like the first game, almost everything here is some sort of metaphor for this escapism. But the next two areas of the game follow a very similar pattern to the first. Both the school and the hospital contain false people just like the hunter's house.
Yep,
The school has bullies that are made out of pottery,
yep.
and the hospital has patients that are put together from prosthetics. Even the hands that shouldn't physically be able to move on their own come to life. But just like the hunter, the teacher and doctor seem to be dark and twisted versions of what you would expect them to be. The teacher appears to be teaching the bullies, but take a closer look. She isn't really teaching anything. The doctor also seems to be fixing his patients, replacing their limbs with prosthetics and giving them facelifts. So that's why Roger's mask in the first game was always slipping down. It's just time for his monthly checkup. But once again, the doctor doesn't seem to know when to stop, just like how the hunter doesn't know why you wouldn't hunt humans. After handing the teacher one final lesson and giving the doctor a roast he'll never forget,
Now that
the two
that's that bro. When she just sat there by the fire, I was like, oh nah.
once again move through the Pale City. This is where we are introduced to this game's big bad, the Thin Man. Now, this game's big twist is that the Thin Man is Mono. This is his monster form after he grows up. This is once again very similar to the first game. That one made you think that Six was innocent, trapped on the moor, only to later reveal that they were actually trapped there with her. Now, Little Nightmares 2 has you running away from the Thin Man, only to reveal that you are actually running away from yourself, what you could become. Yeah, Little Nightmares really should be called Existential Crises, the video game. You see, the Thin Man's gimmick is that he grabs people and abducts them through the televisions, taking them to the signal tower, the source of the TV transmission. This is something that he eventually does to Six in this game, but we learn that the Thin Man is trapped in the signal tower until Mono finally opens this door and releases him, something that Six was trying to stop all along. By choosing to open this door, the Thin Man is released and Six is taken, leaving only her shadow behind. Mono then has to fight his way through the Pale City alone, avoiding the Thin Man before finally confronting him and rescuing Six, just like he did at the beginning of the game. Another
Right.
cheeky little hint about the game's ending. This rescue isn't as straightforward as that though. Even though it's only been a short amount of time for us, when Mono arrives at the signal tower, Six has grown monstrous and twisted. It feels like she's been there for a lot longer. But the game does give us subtle clues as to why this is. The signal tower is slowly warping everything around it. The city is being pulled towards it just like the viewers were pulled into it through their televisions. But we were given clues inside the tower as well. Gravity here doesn't work properly and neither does space. It seems like the laws of our reality don't apply here, so
Not at all.
naturally neither does time. This is how Mono can exist in both the past and the present at the same time. This is
Mm-hmm.
also hinted at in Six's room, with things from her future also here. To rescue Six, Mono has to break her music box. Now, this closely mirrors the start of the game, and after breaking it, Six reverts to her human form, although now she holds herself slightly differently. As the two
Oh
try to
yeah.
make their escape, they are chased by this giant wall of flesh and eyes. Now, the game never explains this, but these are actually all of those viewers that have been sucked into here through their televisions, all melded together like
You know,
some sort of weird
I ain't gonna lie, I never thought of that.
human Play Doh. Mono then makes his final jump. This time, though, instead of pulling him up, Six decides to drop him. This betrayal is what leaves him stranded alone in the signal tower, slowly growing up to become the Thin Man. Not only is this a paradox, but it's also a tragic tale. Mono tried so hard to rescue Six, but he was let down by her in the end, just as she was let down by others. A cycle of betrayal and resentment. Just another loop. But once again, the game contained a ton of hints to this reveal. When tuning the televisions like this, you can see Mono's shadow grows tall and thin, just like how in the DLC of the first game, the shadows revealed the true identity of the gnomes. Tarsier really are the kings of foreshadowing. But
Oh
when the
my
Thin Man
god.
gets too close to Mono, you can hear this sound. This is exactly the same sound as you would hear when you put a microphone too close to a speaker that it's connected to. This is the sound that's produced when a signal is played into itself. It's called a feedback loop, both a hint that Mono and the Thin Man's signal are the same, but also that they are both trapped in their own type of loop. This was even foreshadowed on the cover art of the
Mm.
game, with the Thin Man stood behind Mono in the same pose, almost like his shadow. And finally, the showdown between Mono and the Thin Man requires Mono to mirror the Thin Man's movements. He's quite literally looking in the mirror when he faces the Thin Man. Little Nightmares 2 ends with Six leaving the signal tower alone, but the secret ending shows us where she ends up. She leaves the TV and is immediately confronted by Shadow 6, the entity that appears every time she feeds in the first game. The camera pans out, and Shadow 6 looks towards an advertisement for the more as Six gets her first hunger pains. Now, this is about as simply as I can explain Little Nightmares 2, but I did promise you that there was some new information that provides
Right,
some
come
new
on.
answers,
That's what I'm
and that
trying to find out.
information comes from the Sounds of Nightmares audio series. That
They have an
audio
audio
series is being
series.
used in part
I
of the
didn't even know that.
marketing for Little Nightmares 3, but it gives us some massive hints about the world that this game takes place in, the Nowhere. The Sounds of Nightmares introduced us to two new characters: Noon, a troubled young girl who travels to the Nowhere in her nightmares, and Otto, her counselor, who is supposedly trying to help her.
Actually, never mind. I have heard about some of this stuff about the whole dreaming stuff, but I didn't know it was from an audio series.
Now, this actually confirms one of the biggest theories about this world. It's long been theorized that Little Nightmares takes place in some sort of nightmare world, mostly due to the name and the fact that when you die, the characters appear to wake up as if from a dream. This theory has now been all but confirmed. Noon travels to the Nowhere during her deepest nightmares. But if you were worried that this was all just a dream, don't be. There is far more to it than that. The more that Noon visits, the more that the Nowhere becomes a part of her. You see, the Nowhere might exist in our nightmares, but it has a very real effect on our world too. As Noon visits the Nowhere more and more in her sleep, she eventually begins to physically disappear, something that Otto captures on camera. If that wasn't bad enough, she even begins to grow a tumor in her brain in the shape of an eye. Now, this story,
Ooh.
just like the games, hides a deeper mystery. We soon learn that Otto has ulterior motives. While he pretends to be helping Noon, listening to her stories of the Nowhere, he constantly pushes her to keep exploring it, even when she doesn't want to. He ends every therapy session by offering her a chocolate, where he delivers the creepiest catchphrase I have ever heard.
Sweets for my sweet.
Pause on that, gang. Pause.
Now, if your alarm bells weren't already ringing by now, we later learn that these sweets were actually laced with sedatives. You see, Otto wanted Noon to
That's
keep
what I was
visiting the
literally
nowhere.
just thinking.
His sister experienced the exact same symptoms as Noon did before she eventually disappeared completely. Otto is only pretending to help Noon. All the while, he was forcing her to visit the nowhere, pushing her more and more into that world so that he could figure out a way to go there to go and find out what happened to his missing sister. We learn
Mm.
that Noon is taken to the nowhere by the ferryman, someone we've seen both before in the comics and in portraits around the games. But the audio series heavily implies that there is another entity in the nowhere, a more powerful one that is trying to convince the children that travel here to stay.
That darkness, that's the secret. It hides in this place.
I think this is likely the eye entity that we've been seeing throughout the entire series.
Yeah,
A
it has
powerful
to
entity
be.
just watching the children as they travel here in their nightmares. Watching and waiting. Now, not only is this story incredibly creepy, but it also explains a lot about the world of Little Nightmares. This most likely means that both Six and Mono, and probably all the children from the comics, travel to the nowhere in their dreams too. But this might have just given us a huge clue about one of my old theories. There is one image in Little Nightmares 2 that stands out among all the rest. This picture shows a young boy sat on a very large chair next to a hospital bed. Now, while this image, or ones very similar, do pop up several times throughout the game, this one was placed in the middle of the school like this. What made it stand out to me, though, is that it's very unlike the majority of pictures that we see. Most portraits in Little Nightmares show something weird or creepy. They often show the twisted and warped monsters that we see in the games. Sometimes they show cut content or things that we'll see in the future. But almost all of them have this weird dreamlike or nightmarish quality that makes them fit in with this world. This one,
Oh
however,
yeah.
seems very normal, almost as if it's a memory. This led me to theorize that this was a projection of Mono's memories. I even theorized that Mono was an orphan, the name Mono being a huge clue to this. Mono is a prefix that means singular or
Yeah,
alone,
one.
as in monochrome being one color, or Monopoly being a board game where only one person has fun. This, of course, is a huge foreshadow to how we end this game. Mono ends up all alone in the signal tower to grow up into the Thin Man. Could also be a nod to the idea that Mono and the Thin Man are one signal, one person.
Mm.
But I also theorized that Mono was alone in our world too. He lost both of his parents. This picture is a reflection of Mono's memory of losing them. This could
I mean, I can see why you will say this is Mono, especially the way he's sitting in that chair. Is like just how the ending.
mean that parts of the nowhere are influenced by those that visit. Mono's greatest fears all manifest during the second game. He fears the hospital because he spent a lot of time in them during the loss of his parents.
Mm.
The school we see is a boarding school, likely somewhere he had to go to as an orphan. He fears the Pale City because his greatest fear is growing up alone, something that in a cruel twist of irony ended up happening to him in the nowhere anyway. This leaves only one area unaccounted for, the hunter's cabin. Well, if you want my theory, this is probably how he lost one of his parents in the first place. So this could explain why Mono chose to come to the nowhere. Afraid of ending up alone in his own world, he travelled here hoping to find companionship. Kind of makes the ending just that little bit more tragic. But what about Mono's powers? Where do those come from? Well, as I alluded to earlier, it seems like this eye entity is drawing people to this world and then tempting them to stay here. Almost like a Hansel and Gretel style story, something that I think the factory in Little Nightmares 3 is a major hint to. But it also seems like this entire world is created from the minds of those who visit, almost like the nowhere is pieced together by the eye, from fragments of our dreams or nightmares. As I said earlier, the Pale City at least feels influenced by Mono's nightmares. I mean, this does make sense. Our mind's eye is what creates our dreams, so naturally the creator of the dream world would be an eye. It's entirely possible that Mono's
He's
power over the
cooking right now,
televisions
for real.
comes
For
from
real.
his behaviors in
I'm
real
locked in.
life.
I ain't even gonna
As he
cap. I'm
spent
barely
more and more
talking.
time in
Hold
front of
on.
the TV, wishing to get away from the horrors of his own world, he began to dream about all those worlds he saw in them. He saw happy families, ideal vacation destinations, advertisements for toys. Maybe, as Mono began to dream about traveling through the televisions, this power began to manifest in his nightmare world. Perhaps even this was the bargain that the Eye entity made with him. The Eye offered Mono this power to tempt him to stay here. But this whole theory just starts to make more and more sense as you delve into it. The reason why all these monsters seem to be cosplaying their roles is because they are created by this Eye entity, the
Mm-hmm.
monster that watches our nightmares and brings them to life. It only gets fragments of our world though, just like how a dream or a nightmare is only a small piece of the real world. This also explains why many of these monsters don't really have faces. You often dream of people but can't fully remember their face. This even explains why this game has such a focus on fake people. The taxidermy family, the living prosthetics, these are all a reflection of Mono's dreams of the televisions. When we watch a TV show, what we see is entirely fake.
You're onto something. You're onto something. Hold on.
People with facelifts to make themselves look younger, happy families who are just acting. This part of the world is being crafted by the eye as if it were a TV show, because again, it doesn't truly know the difference between TV and real life. This could also explain why the viewers become so obsessed with the TV signal. Yes, they want to get away, but the shows they watch come from Mono's imagination. They are quite literally watching a TV show that is out of this world. In fact, if you think about it, just like how TV shows in our world are a glimpse into a world that doesn't exist, these viewers are glimpsing into a world that for them doesn't exist. Our world. It's very creepy to think that our nightmare counterparts are looking into our dreams as if they are a television show. It really does bring a creepier meaning to the theme of escapism. But if you thought that was creepy enough, it gets even worse. The Sounds of Nightmares audio series has Otto theorized that if children can travel into the nowhere, then logically travel out of the nowhere must also be possible. It is
Mm-hmm.
after all shown to Noon as a doorway. Otto really should be careful about trying to open doors like this though. But this brings up another question. We still don't really know what this eye entity wants. It's luring children here like this, but why? What does the eye gain from trapping children in its world? Maybe like everything else in this world, it wants to feast on them. Or more accurately, feast on their innocence.
Yeah.
This would explain why the ferryman tells Otto through Noon that adults are not welcome in the nowhere. The key difference between children and adults being their innocence and their imagination. The eye uses the vivid imagination of the children to create its own world, and once they are trapped here, it feeds on their purity, leaving nothing but a monster behind. That would perfectly explain why Six has such a change in character. Her time in the signal tower was spent being slowly fed on by the eye entity, lured in by the music box. By the time Mono rescues her, she has none of her childhood innocence left. She might look like a child, but she's just as monstrous as all the other adults in this world. She's halfway in between the two. This also explains why Mono suffers the same fate. When he's left in the signal tower, the eye entity focuses its gaze on him. Although by the time that Mono comes to rescue him, it's already too late.
Too late.
But speaking of Six, while we don't exactly know why she came to the nowhere, it does seem like she's on a mission. She began her journey just trying to survive, but by the end of Little Nightmares 1, she seems to be confident in whatever she's doing. With her childhood innocence now gone, she's no longer shackled by morality, no longer afraid to become the monster. Six seems like she will do whatever it takes to achieve her goal now. Well, what exactly
Yeah.
is this goal? Well, perhaps it's to
That's
escape the
crazy.
nowhere, get back
This
to
is
her own
insane.
world, or perhaps it's more simple than that. It seems like Six traveled to the moor after she learnt that there were those in this world with immense power, something she took for herself from the lady. Well, what does she want with all of that power? Perhaps she wants revenge on the Eye, the thing that brought her here, for both herself and for those that she lost along the way. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if we get any more
That
clues
would be an
in Little
interesting,
Nightmares 3.
way to
If you
go
did enjoy
about
this
it.
theory, don't forget to subscribe. We're slowly making our way towards 300k. It'd be amazing if we could reach that this
It'd be. This ain't gonna happen, but like, if she became the eye, if Six became the actual eye, that'd be insane. That'd be insane. Um, this is a W video. This video is tough. I'll definitely put the link down in the description so y'all can check out the original video yourself. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.